Thank you for tuning in to the Helium Radio Network. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
Welcome to Sessions with Sarah. Today's guest is Amber Romaniuk, and she is a digestive, health, nutrition, every kind of eating for the new year that you're going to need. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm actually really excited to have you because, you talk about how you've taken this journey through eating and you've done all these diets. And did you do the keto diet? And that
No, I didn't do the keto diet. Luckily, I was over food addiction and emotional eating before that one came along. But I do help a lot of my clients who have done it to reverse the damage that it's done, whether it's food fears or hormone issues or gut issues. So yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, what I think, mostly for some of our listeners and people in my age, in your mid 30s, all of a sudden, I feel like your metabolism stops, your hormones take in, and there's no way to lose weight. A sharp 10 just comes on. Do you hear that a lot?
It definitely can. And, usually that sharp 10 or 15 or however much it is, our metabolism isn't meant to slow down all of a sudden when we hit, our 30s or 40s or whenever it is. It's really what's happened is likely an accumulation of stress over time has just hit the hormones so hard that they're under functioning or over functioning, and that's stressing the body out. Maybe you're always eating on the run and your digestive system isn't working well and your body's so inflamed. And when that's happening, you can just gain more and more water retention, and that makes you feel like you can't lose weight. Also, if you struggle with emotional eating, which is eating for any reason other than physical nourishment, so eating and multitasking, eating and watching TV, eating when you're sad, eating when you're full, this heavily stresses out the hormones, the digestion, and your body. And so if you have some or all these different things going on, you're overbooked, you're stressed all the time, you're under eating empty calories, your body can only put up with so much before she goes, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I don't feel safe, and so I'm going to put on weight as a protective mechanism. Yeah. But that's what happens is it's really a protective mechanism as to why we gain the weight. And so if you're struggling with the weight loss or you're gaining weight, you can't figure out why, there's probably many potential underlying factors that have been going on for months or years.
Well, I am a pharmacist and we do eat on the run. So,
fair enough.
What kind of advice would you give to, there's many pharmacists out there and that actually listen on this network. What advice would you give to them? Because I see everybody gaining weight. I mean, we are in the pandemic, I understand, but what could we do better to stop that stress? Because I think that's what makes your stomach rounder and puffier.
Yeah. So, there's many factors. So my first question is, do you get time to take a lunch break at work? Because it's so important to have some time to stop and eat and chew your food properly and have your body digest, because if you're in fight or flight all the time, your digestion is shut down and it's really difficult to digest properly. I think it's important to take time at home to prep healthy meals and snacks to bring to work with you, regardless of what your profession is, so that you have healthy foods available to choose from. It's when we don't set ourselves up for success and don't prepare and we're just grabbing for whatever is available, and we're likely probably making poor food choices or not eating enough. And that can really contribute to low blood sugar, feeling hangry, weight gain, hormone imbalances, and just fuel actually more later day overeating or even binging when you get home because you're so hungry and your blood sugar's dropped so much that you're just give me the first thing that out of the cupboard, right?
I don't care if it's pasta at this point, right?
Yeah. And so that's where the snacks and, if you can do that, that's really important because we have to eat regularly through the day to support our health.
It's so true. That's some good advice, I guess. It's just so hard. They don't give us breaks. That doesn't
make any sense. Isn't that a legality that you're supposed to get a break?
The company I work for doesn't give them, and we don't know why.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's not good. But that is some of the questions that I know a lot of listeners were asking me to talk about. But I'm also interested in learning about what brought you here. I read a little bit about how when you were younger, you struggled with weight and like some kids were making fun of you at the bus stop, I probably would have punched them if I was your friend, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
I'm like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So for me, I really, from a young age, struggle with body image. From that experience, older boys called me fat and ugly, and then everyone started making fun of me. And I really became very critical and insecure of my body. And all growing up, I had a very emotional relationship with food and just ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and never understood how that could impact my digestion or my weight or my mood even. And so for me, I fell deep into a food addiction in my early 20s where I heavily restricted and lost weight really fast and got quote unquote what I thought was the perfect body. And then I couldn't attain it because I was only eating like 800 calories a day and exercising,
Right.
twice a day, 6 times a week. And so it just was not attainable. And so it's like the switch flipped and I went the other day from barely eating to eating, like baked goods and pasta and cheese and chips and pints of ice cream and like multiple items in one sitting, and then gained 60 pounds really quickly and, really fell into a very destructive cycle of emotional eating on a regular basis for a couple of years. And that's what really, that was a huge struggle for me and created all my health issues because it's such a stressor on your body to be restricting and punishing yourself with exercise. And then you fail on the diet. And then now I'm punishing myself with donuts and chocolate and all this food, and I have no willpower and I can't gain control. It's a very vicious cycle, but as long as we're focused on diets and exercise and the eating less, exercising more model, that's going to fix everything, we often will stay stuck in the cycle because it's not about the weight, it's about your self-worth and a lack of self-love. And the only way to love yourself and fill that void is to do the deeper work by addressing the emotional insecurities you have. If you're a people pleaser, a perfectionist, an overachiever, if you don't feel good enough, if you put all your worth in everyone else to validate you, you've got to be willing to take time to work on that. And you have to be willing to take time to step-by-step work on emotional eating. Or, if you struggle with the diet mentality, diet addiction is real. How many people just go from diet to diet and they get a serotonin high every time they buy the new diet and then they fail and they find the next new thing, gaining freedom from diets, because honestly, diets don't work. The eating styles don't work. It just feels more restrictive behavior because any eating style that's telling you you've got to cut out a whole healthy food group is a huge red flag. You shouldn't have to cut out mass amounts of items, especially healthier items, to get healthy. Restriction only takes you away from learning how to listen to your body. And it's so important that you can slow down to learn how to listen to your body to see what she needs. More sleep, less screen time, more hydration, sitting eating at the table, being present with your food. An important question to ask yourself before you eat, especially if you're finding you're eating all the time and snacking, is this physical hunger? Do I actually physically need to eat, or is this emotional hunger, which is like, I've already eaten, but I'm just snacking, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed.
Right.
Because people don't know the difference, where physical hunger is my stomach's growled, I have a hunger signal, my appetite, signal, I haven't eaten for 3 hours, I'm lightheaded, I'm dizzy, my blood sugar has dropped.
Okay, that's me all the time. There.
Blood sugar stuff. You might have some cortisol stuff going on, because I often find for my clients who have really sensitive blood sugar, often their cortisol is too high or too low, and that really governs more sensitive blood sugar.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. What would I do for that? I think
oh man, that's a whole conversation. So if you suspect you have hormone imbalances, you can definitely go and express that to your doctor and see if they're willing to support you. Some doctors are open and some are not. So it just depends what kind of doctor you have and what kind of mindset they have. You can also
cool one or not cool one.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Or you can reach out to an alternative healthcare practitioner. I support my clients with all that kind of stuff, with different nutrition and lifestyle changes and using foods, teas, and spices and a little bit of natural supplementation and healthy stress coping mechanisms. Like it's about combining a bunch of different things to help balance the hormone or the gut issue or whatever it is. But we have to deal with the stress and we have to deal with the relationship with food, because those two play a huge role in throwing the hormones out of whack. And you can't just throw yourself on like 5 different adrenal supports to balance it, because it's just a Band-Aid, right? What's the root issue that's made the cortisol high or low in the first place? So getting tested and seeing where your numbers at is very important, because it's going to dictate what direction do you need to take, because it's a different recommendation focus if it's too low versus if it's too high.
Okay.
Yeah. What I wouldn't suggest is going and Googling your symptoms and then Googling supplements to take to deal with this, because
I would never.
The problem is, because I see people do this, and I'm going to share it because it'll probably resonate.
Okay.
There's certain supplements and recommendations, and I'll just use the cortisol thing. So say your cortisol is high and you're going, oh, what supplements are good for cortisol? And you see that maca, which is an adaptogenic herb, is suggested. Well, whilst it's great for your adrenal health and your cortisol, if you don't know if you have high estrogen, maca will boost your estrogen even higher.
Okay.
So that's like a big oops. If you don't know your whole picture and you're just blindly going, and I get it, you want to get better, totally understand, but you can hurt yourself more than you can help yourself if you're just blindly trying to navigate it on your own and you suspect you have these certain things going on. Same with the thyroid. Certain things are great for underactive, certain are better for over.
Right.
Like it's so important that you understand your whole picture.
Gauge. That's really hard to gauge. Like people, when they have that takes them a while to kind of straighten that out.
It can for sure, but you have to address the root issues. So if you just throw someone a bunch of supplements, they're just going to end up with really expensive pee. You've got to deal with the mindset. You've got to deal with the lifestyle. You got to deal with the relationship with food, the relationship with your body image. There's many aspects to address, but if you do, you gain freedom for life, and then you heal, and then you get to this maintenance, and then you're good to go, right? You don't have to keep spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars or however much on clothing sizes and trainers and quick fix diets and all this stuff anymore. You save money, right? Because you're addressing the root issues. So I hope that helps answer your question, but as you can tell, it's very in depth.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I feel like I'm not the only one who feels that way.
No, many do, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't know what to do. I mean, like I said to you, I'm going into this new year, I didn't know what to do. And, I always thought like I probably should get those checked, the levels, but that's good to know.
It's always important to get all of it checked and to have someone who can guide you each step of the way to help you with the balancing and following up and making sure things are moving in the right direction. That is so, so, so important. And this is the key, because I know for a lot of women that come to me, they've tried all sorts of different things and nothing is working, and they really lose hope in their ability to, find optimal health. Don't give up. You got to keep trusting that gut instinct, which is like, I just have to find the right protocol, the right people, whatever it is. And do not let anyone tell you that they can't do anything and that there's nothing we can do. There's always something that can be done. You just have to find the people who will help you address those root issues.
Well, that would be you.
I'm definitely one of those people. There's great people out there as well who will do it, but I do coaching. Yeah.
You have a program called Body Freedom?
Yes. Yeah.
Like I know it, but I'm like, wait a minute. Sorry about that. But tell us a little bit more about that and how coaching would work for you if people wanted to reach out.
Yeah. So body freedom for me is really about helping women create that for themselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so if someone is curious, if they're struggling with emotional eating, I have a free emotional eating quiz on my website at amberapproved.ca, which is super easy for people to kind of go and see if they're like, I don't know. But when I first connect with someone, I love to just do a 30-minute complimentary call where we connect to talk about body freedom. And you can share about your health goals and struggles, where you're seeking support, maybe what you've tried that hasn't worked, and what's holding you back. Because it's so important to talk about that, because the mind often gets in the way of wanting to make bigger changes that perhaps have felt more uncomfortable. And so we talk through all of that. I ask different questions. And then of course I get into how I support my clients. So I do work with people more long-term, because it's taken time to get to this place. It's going to take time to change on all those levels. Exactly. So I like to be reasonable with people. And so I go through the programs, and I work with my clients like on a bi-weekly basis with follow-ups and monitoring symptoms and giving recommendations. Lots of work we do on the mindset and the emotions and your schedule and building your self-worth and overcoming emotional eating. If you have gut issues, hormone issues, we address that stuff. But it's really meant to just be taken one step at a time, because it is, for life, and it's lifestyle changes that are meant to set you up to have this food and body freedom. And so that's how I support my clients one-on-one. I'm working on an online program that'll be a bit of a starter program that'll be available sometime here in the next couple of months. And then I, have other resources that people can, check out if they're curious to just, test the waters a bit and hear a little bit more about me before they explore anything else.
Well, I think that's really great too, because there's so many different diets, and speaking of the new year, people are going to go into it. They're going to do, Atkins or keto, like we were talking about, and stuff like that. But there's all these different things. Some people have celiac that they don't know about. Some like foods also too, I find, like I've been reading, trigger inflammation, maybe red wine. I don't know.
Yeah, so any kind of alcohol, because usually it's just the case that alcohol and sugar are only one molecule different. And so any kind of alcohol is inflammatory. Also, if your body's already really stressed out, refined
Mhm.
ingredients and foods are just going to stress your body out even more. The other thing too is that we have gut flora. And so we have all these bacteria in our large
Right.
intestine. And so if you have ever had to take antibiotics and don't know how to balance it, you've eaten sugar, drank alcohol, eaten refined foods, had stress, which is most of the population, your gut
100%
flora,
Dr.
right?
Sarah.
Yeah, your gut flora is likely out of whack. And so when you drink
Right.
alcohol, it just it feeds the unhealthy bacteria, and then it can make you more inflamed, more puffy, retain more water because it's a food source. And so I wouldn't suggest people go on an extreme candida cleanse to try and regulate that, because the protocols online can feel very restrictive. So this is where it's important, again, to maybe get some support with stuff like this, because I often find most of the women coming to me are emotional eaters, and it's important to address your relationship with food first before you try any kind of protocol to strengthen your liver or your gut flora. It's very important that you don't feel restricted, because as soon as you do, you'll want to rebel and eat all the things you're not allowing yourself to have. Same with the diets in the new year. What if this year you didn't try a diet actually, and you chose one little intention and one goal, like hydration or eating slowly at the table or addressing emotional eating or catching negative self-talk? But what if you just started with one focus that had nothing to do with restricting or killing yourself in the gym? Because as you set this one intention and allow yourself to take the time you need to work toward it and you achieve it, you will build confidence.
Right.
Setting ourselves up for failure and going, I'm going to do that diet and lose 40 pounds in a month. And then you fail, and then you lose more hope.
They can't even go past 30 days.
Yeah.
Right?
And then it's like, well, I screwed. I'm going to throw in the towel until next January. And it's like, you have the whole year. You do not need to start in January. You start anytime, right? Like the marketing though convinces us that that's the time
to do it right away. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So what if you didn't diet in 2021?
What if you just like changed one little thing and just work from there? I think like you said, taking one thing, and it takes it's going to take you a year. Basically, I would say to lose the 10 pounds, it's going to take a little bit. It's not going to come off within a month, especially if you're in the older gap, like women 40 plus or more. I think it's harder for them to maintain that.
That's a limiting belief. So the only reason that, we're told that it's harder to lose weight as you get older is because it's programmed so deeply into our subconscious mind, and your cells listen to your thoughts. And if you've been a chronic dieter, an emotional eater for 20 or 30 years, and you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, well, of course it's going to be harder to lose weight because your body is so stressed. Your hormones are probably so out of whack. You're probably so inflamed and stressed, and negative self-talk is happening all the time. Well, of course it's going to be more difficult, but if you work through those layers and you alleviate those blocks, it should happen quite easily. So that's really the holdup. It's not that it becomes more difficult. It's that usually the level of imbalances just keep building, and therefore the body's just like, the last thing I want to do is lose weight when there's all these other stressors going on. That's the last two priorities for a female: reproduction and weight loss, when there's all these other potential things going on. She wants to protect, because weight gain is a protective mechanism. She's like, the stress response, it's like being out in the woods and seeing the bear. Like if you're constantly seeing a bear, your body wants to protect your organs in case it attacks you, right? To keep you alive. That's essentially what's going on. But it's like your mind versus your body. Your body unconditionally loves you and is always trying to function at her best ability to keep you going and doing what you need to do. But in our mind, based on how we think of ourselves and our beliefs of ourselves, we behave. So if we don't like our bodies and we're constantly obsessed with losing weight to look a certain way, and you're hurting yourself with diets and restriction and over-exercise, and you're stressed all the time,
right?
That is
Makes
only going to
sense.
be attained for a certain period of time. And then you're like, oh, I'm so done. I want to eat the cookie. And then you eat too many cookies, and then you're like, oh my God, now I've got to go and diet and fix it again. And then here come all the hormone and gut issues, and you get more frustrated with yourself. And again, like I said earlier, it disconnects you from yourself. So that's why it's so important to understand your mindset is dictating the way that you behave with food, whether it's diets, restriction, mindful eating, emotional eating. Your mindset and thoughts are dictating the way you show up in the world. So you have to work on the mindset whilst you address these different things.
And I read too, and I've always kind of thought this was a true thing. Like, say if you go on some diets and you go on this bad diet and whatnot, you gain weight quicker when you kind of come out of it and quit it.
Totally, because you damage your metabolism more usually every time you go on one of those
Mhm.
restrictive diets or these diets where it's like all soy or processed foods like space food and packages and there's no nutrient value
Oh,
in
like
it.
a lean cuisine type deal.
Yeah, or like what
Yeah.
is that one? Oh man, Simple for Life or something. It's just like you're eating all the soy and your estrogen levels are going through the roof, and so you gain weight after you come off it. Or same with keto, like
Right.
it kills people's metabolism, and then they just gain the weight back like crazy. Or
Yeah.
HCG, like any diet like that is just it can be dangerous because it messes up the hormones, it messes up the metabolism, it can impact your blood sugar. So it's so important to understand that there could be implications and like costs mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially of continuing in that
In that
cycle.
cycle. Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you're not sugarcoating it. Oh, like you're no sugarcoating podcast. So
Yeah.
you have a podcast too.
Yeah.
And what kind of guests do you have on to talk about nutrition and
So
all?
yeah, so usually I do mostly solo episodes. I just find my
Okay.
audience is very, but I do have women on who are, have gone through similar experiences and just it's so nice to hear all sorts of different women sharing their
Right.
stories and experiences. And then I do have other experts on to talk a little bit about self-love and, hormone health. And I do talk about stuff pertaining to energy and spirituality. So I have some guests on like that. So just try to bring in a well-rounded variety just
Yeah.
based on the different kind of women who are listening, and all of them can relate to something a little bit different. But I share a lot more in depth about, a lot of the things we've been talking about here
Right.
and break down, in each topic. I have over 260 episodes now. So it's
Nice.
something
Yeah.
that's a great resource for people. And, as far as planting seeds and starting to build awareness with, these things we've been talking about today, because
Right.
anyone can create food and body freedom, but you have to be willing to take time to be willing to shift the mindset and the habits.
Well, it's so true. It is so true. And I think you would be a great person to start. My guest should, all of my listeners should start with you this year.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Like I said, like when we started off, it's so cool to talk to somebody, there are things like that. Oh, the celiac, the hormones. So if you guys have any of these issues
Yeah.
and, you don't want to go on a fad diet, I don't recommend those detox diets myself either as a pharmacist.
I don't suggest any of that.
You might look good for like a month or so, but you're not going to, like we said, you're going to gain an extra 10 when you get out of it, right?
Yeah. And what you have to ask yourself is not only what does it cost me? Like, okay, I could gain more weight. I could damage my hormones. I could,
Right.
negatively impact my gut health. I'm going to waste more money, right?
Yeah.
It's going to cost me emotionally. Like it could have negative impact on your relationships with your spouse, your family, or, snapping on your family. Maybe it has a negative impact on the way you show up in your work or your career or your business. Maybe you don't want to be seen. And so you don't grow, right? Maybe you withhold yourself from getting in a relationship or just like, moving forward in your life because this has you so stuck. And I know for women who are really critical of their bodies, they're not showing up and living their best life because they're letting the fear and insecurity and the judgment hold them back. And no one deserves to live that way. And it's okay if you're there right now, but recognize it's just you and your mind holding you back. And we've got to learn how to recognize this part of us that I like to call the ego, which is the self-sabotaging mindset that's going, you're not good enough. You're never going to be good enough until you lose the weight, and you should keep doing the diets and you don't have the willpower and you're not good enough. The true us in our heart is the us that's going, I need to change this. I'm done with the diets. I want to do the deeper work. I want to balance my hormones and digestion. I want to overcome emotional eating. I want to love myself. I may not know exactly how I'm going to get there. And man, it feels scary and uncomfortable to think about, but it's trusting that even though the ego is going to be like, don't do it. It's not going to work. You're going to fail. Right. But that ego keeps you stuck. The fear of the unknown, the fear of change, fear of getting uncomfortable. But with anything, you have to be willing to ease into some of that stuff to transform.
Which is so true. It is so true. And what better year than 2021 to do that? We're coming out of this pandemic at some point. Might be in 6 months, but we're coming out.
Yeah.
And we want to look good. So we might have to talk more. It's going to be
a great year. Yeah. And you want to feel good because the way you feel about yourself dictates everything. And I'm a huge believer in manifestation. And so I really believe you manifest what you are. And so if you keep manifesting all these crappy situations and poor health, you got to think about your thoughts that you're thinking all the time and what you're focusing your energy on. And if you're not happy with any of that, You've got to, take a look
Yeah,
at
that's true.
working on your mind and your body and you shifting that, because you are a mirror. So you can look at what's around you and go, does this resonate? Does this feel aligned? And if it doesn't, well, it's not about blaming the other things. It's about going, this is about me working on myself. And
Right.
this is the best time. Like all the women I've seen transform themselves this year, it's so incredible and empowering. And I know if this was me 10 years ago, I would have binge ate my way through the year. And now it's like self-care, easy, whatever. Right. So I'm very grateful for the experience I went through and what I learned, because now I have healthy ways to cope with stress and I have no desire to eat to try to shove my feelings down. So it's very empowering to help other women with that and see them, thriving through this year and healing instead of, just feeling so defeated. Like, because that's another thing I know people like, oh, what a year. And they're putting all this pressure on 2021 having to be this amazing year. And it's like, it's what you're going to create it to be. So take the pressure off, right? That's important.
Right.
However, work on yourself. I think it's such a great time to work on yourself. We have more time right now to build self-care routines and get more sleep and,
get your mindset into that.
Yeah. So focus on that.
There's no pressures.
One step at a time.
Because there's nowhere to go anyway. Work at home.
Yeah.
Or you're
so you might as
home.
well make the most of it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for doing the podcast. Where can everybody reach out to you so we can get you some people and get you busy right now?
Oh, well, thank you. And I really appreciate you having me again. So
of course,
you can find me at amberapproved.ca. That's my website. Again, I have the quiz there. You can learn more about body freedom and also book your 30-minute body freedom call. I have my podcast, which is the No Sugarcoating podcast, which is available on all podcast apps, as well as my website that you can listen and subscribe. And then I'm on Instagram, and my name is my first and last name, Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk. So you can follow me there, and I'm on there usually.
You got to follow
every
each
day.
other. I might follow you, but we can do a little following.
Yeah, totally. Of course.
Yeah. Going to support our grams too.
100%. Yeah. Women have to support each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on in a few months and see where we're at. I might be one of your treatments. So
totally. Well, we could do a Q&A and I'd be happy to answer listeners' questions.
All right. That sounds so awesome. Let's do that soon then.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right. We'll see you soon. Take care. Happy New Year.
You too. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Helium Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and should not be construed in any way as advice from Helium Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by producers, writers, and editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the express written consent of Helium Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.